G'day, welcome to Walking Through the Word. My name's James Hornby. I'm the lead minister of the All Saints Anglican Network. So join me as we walk through the Word, each week unpacking a portion of the Bible, and feel free to comment, to ask questions, to get involved, and we'll work through this together. I'm so glad you can join us. Duck inside as we get on to the next episode. Welcome to Looking Through Luke, our journey together through the biography of Jesus written by Luke. I love music and I love songs. One of my hobbies is sometimes to sit down and write songs. I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy the creative process. The very best songs, the very best lyrics, actually, I think, help us see the world in a new way, in a new perspective. I don't know if you've ever listened to a song on the radio, on a music player, and maybe you're hearing it for the first time, and the writer of the song uses words to paint a picture of the world that we see every day, but suddenly transports us to see it in new light. It's an incredible moment when that happens. On other occasions, I've been listening to music and suddenly the songwriter or the singer has been singing about a situation in life that I can relate to, that I've been through, and suddenly they've used words or lines that give voice to what I think and feel, and yet I've never been able to find the right words myself. There's something really powerful about good songwriting. Well, today we are looking at a song. It's actually a song that was sung by Mary. It's a very famous song, particularly among classical music aficionados and those that love good choral music. And Mary's song has been translated as the Magnificat. That's what it's known as in the Latin. And Mary, in the Gospel, or in the biography of Jesus written by Luke, picks up and begins to sing. Because she's had space in her heart and in her mind to begin to process the events of what's happened. If you've been journeying with us through Luke, you know that when the angel appeared to Mary and Gabriel appeared and told her what would happen to her, Mary was troubled. She was greatly perplexed. She wrestled furiously. She was thinking hard about what the angel was saying to her and what it meant. Big news for a young girl to take in. And Mary, at the moment that the angel appeared to her, accepted the news that Gabriel gave. And do you remember those words? Let it be unto me. I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled. And there's an act of surrender, if you will, a giving in, an acknowledgement that the angel is a messenger of God and has given a message. She says, well, I am the Lord's servant. You do to me what you want, even if that means I'm going to be disgraced. Even if it means I'm going to be a social outcast. Even if it means Joseph, to whom I'm engaged, is going to break off the engagement. I trust God and I'm willing to surrender to his will. So there was a lot of thinking, there was a lot of being troubled, there was a lot of submission and surrender, but there wasn't a whole lot of joy. And if you've been following with us, you know that Mary immediately went to visit her relative Elizabeth, who by this stage is 6 months pregnant. And Elizabeth proclaims a blessing upon Mary, and Mary begins to feel safe as she's with someone who's also in a very unusual situation. And she's got room to process, and she's got room to think, and she's got room to accept it and try and understand what's happening to her. And now there's space in Mary's heart and mind to feel joy. So I want to read to you her song. I'm not going to sing it, and you'll be very relieved to hear that. Mary said, this is in Luke chapter 1 from verse 46. Mary said, My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down the rulers from their thrones, but he has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, just as he promised our ancestors. And Mary stayed with Elizabeth for about 3 months and then returned home. If you've never heard the Magnificat, you could do a search on Spotify and have a listen to one of the versions. It's often put to remarkable music, and it really is an incredible song. But in this song, there are really, as people have looked at it and analysed it and sought to understand it, there are 2 sections to this song. The first section extends from what we would say is verse 46 through to 49, some might even include verse 50, which is all about Mary singing to God and praising God for his mercy to her personally. But then the song shifts and it stops just being about Mary, and it's broadened. And from verse 51 to the end of the song, she praises God for the impact that the Messiah, the son that she's carrying in her womb, will have not just on her or her neighbourhood or even Israel, but the world. So I just want to look at a couple of things in Mary's song that I think are really helpful for us today. There are many people that have spoken about Mary's song and unpacked it, and I'm sure you could find some great resources on YouTube or other places. But here's a couple of things I think are really helpful for us. Firstly, the song begins and Mary says, "My soul glorifies the Lord." It's not a word that we hear often, particularly if you're not a churchgoer usually. It means my soul makes great the Lord. If you're familiar with the Magnificat in the Latin, the famous line is, "My soul magnifies the Lord." And to magnify something is to enlarge. My soul magnifies the Lord. My soul enlarges God. Now, Mary literally isn't saying that she can make God any bigger than he already is. But let me help you understand what I think she's singing. When I was a kid, I used to collect insects. I had a spider collection, which occupied some shoe boxes. I had a grasshopper collection that grew and shrunk depending on how many spiders I had. Sometimes I would feed the grasshoppers to the spiders, and this went well until my mother one day discovered the shoe boxes in my bedroom. But I had a great fascination for insects. And I remember when I was young being given as a gift a magnifying glass. And I discovered there were some really cool things you could do with this magnifying glass. For example, you could go out to the front on the driveway along the path and take your magnifying glass on a hot day, and you could shine it on ants in just the right way, and those ants would eventually catch on fire. Now, I'm not advocating for that, but I was young and inquisitive, and what young person doesn't like to set things on fire? But the other thing you can do, what actually magnifying glasses are designed to do, is to help you see things up close, to see them more clearly. So there's something about taking a magnifying glass and holding it over an insect, an ant, a butterfly, whatever it might be, without the intent of setting it on fire, and actually examining it, seeing it. And what would happen is that small thing would take up the magnifying glass and you would see it larger. You didn't literally make the insect bigger. It's not what magnifying glasses do. but you would see it as larger. It would actually occupy more of your vision. It would take up more of your field of vision and what you are looking at. And when Mary sings, "My soul magnifies the Lord," or "My soul glorifies the Lord," that's really what she's singing. When she sings, "My soul makes great the Lord," what she's saying is, as she's begun to process this news and understand what God is doing inside her, Mary, a young girl, a nobody from nowhere, her mind's been blown, and God has actually begun to take up more of her vision. God is taking up more of her reference frame, more of her field of view. God is occupying more of her thoughts, more of her actions. And when God does that, when God takes up more of your field of view, then there's less room for other things. There's less room to worry about whether Joseph will divorce you. There's less room to worry about how you're going to bring up a baby as a single mum in a society where to be single is in some senses a sentence that you'll never recover from, to be a social outcast. When God takes up more of your field of view, there's less room in your mind to doubt that what he said is true. There's less room in your mind to doubt that he's good, that he knows what he's doing. When God takes up more of your field of view, there's less room to worry about whether or not he's going to come through. And this is what's happened to Mary. God has been enlarged in her thoughts and mind and heart. And she sings, "My spirit rejoices in God my Saviour." See, when God gets bigger in your heart and mind, you discover that you begin to feel more joyful. We live in an age where we are consumed with, to quote the title of the movie, the pursuit of happiness. Happiness is for so many the end goal, the ultimate pursuit, and yet in our pursuit we often find it fleeting. When we take a hold of it, it doesn't take long for it to seemingly slip out of our grasp again. Or we can find ourselves on the never-ending treadmill of pursuit, trying to look for things that will satisfy. Happiness is fleeting. But when God takes up more of your vision, more of your field of view, you discover that you have more joy. Why? Well, because God is the source of joy. And Mary is joyful. "My spirit rejoices in God, my Saviour." Her soul glorifies the Lord. Her spirit rejoices in God, my Saviour. Soul and spirit, her total self, her whole body, all that she is, in and out, is invested and is consumed with who God is. And then in verse 48 we see why. "For he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant." We've said it a few times over the last few weeks that Mary was a nobody from nowhere. She was the kind of girl that would fly under the radar. She was the kind of girl that society would look at and go, well, there's not much in the way of prospects. Why? Well, she was poor. She was of humble means. She was from a tiny little village of no significance. She's of humble origins. Kind of calls to mind the psalmist, who was a collection, the Psalms are a collection of songs that were written for the Jewish people that helped them worship, helped them think about who God is and what God's like. And there's a psalm in Psalm 34 verse 18 where the psalmist writes, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." St. Augustine once wrote, "For those who would learn God's way, humility is the first thing, humility is the second thing, and humility is the third." Mary is humble. God has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. What does it mean for Mary to be humble? Well, I think Luke here is talking about her unpretentious state. Mary isn't trying to be something she isn't. She isn't pretending or putting forth an image of who she'd like to be. What you see is what you get. And I know don't we? So often our tendency is to pretend that we're something else other than who we really are, is to put forward an image that other people might see that image and think more highly of us. All the while we know deep down it's not really who we are. Maybe we're embarrassed of who we are. Maybe we feel ashamed of who we are. Maybe we know we won't be accepted. But that's not what governs Mary. She is who she is. She doesn't have an overinflated view of herself. You may have heard there's numerous studies done now that show that people often think that they're better drivers than they really are. So surveys are done and people respond to how they think, what kind of a driver they are. If they're a good driver, an average driver, a terrible driver. And funnily enough, people always say that they're a better driver than they really are. Unless you know, like me, that you really are a good driver, then I'm sure it's completely different. Well, Mary doesn't have an overinflated view of her driving, but she doesn't have an overinflated view of herself. In society, from society's perspective, she is worthless. That's a harsh thing to say, but that's how society viewed her. She's worthless with respect to her age, her background, her economic conditions, everything about her life. And if you were God and you were looking for someone to raise the Messiah, the Saviour of the world, surely you'd choose one of the rich, one of the well-to-do girls in Jerusalem. Mary's not going to be able to afford expensive clothing or food, or it'll be a struggle. But no, God has chosen her. He's remembered her humble state. Thanks so much for watching, and if you made a comment, thanks for participating. Open to suggestions too, so let us know what would be helpful. If you did get something out of it, I'd love it if you just like and subscribe to our channel. Hit the like bell notification, hit the like. What it does, it really helps the YouTube algorithm and gets these out to more and more people. So we're not trying to build a massive following or a massive channel. We're actually just trying to communicate the truth of who Jesus is. And if that's something that resonates with you, we'd love your support by doing those two simple things. Thank you. See ya.